Hey, everybody, we're live, and I'm actually going to turn it this way because I'm in my room at Bally's. As those of you who watch the broadcast know that I'm in Las Vegas for my 16th NFL draft. And to my good fortune and blessing, my friend Dave Kaval and Catherine Aker said, "Hey, can you do 8:30?" And I said, "Well, I'm at there." So, "Well, can you do 2:30?" I said, "Yes." So this is brilliant.
It worked.
It works out. It works out. How are you doing? As I said backstage, but on camera, Dave, how are you?
I'm doing quite well. We got the Bay Bridge series this week. A lot of excitement with the Giants. And, obviously anytime we get Bay Area baseball and relive the 89, crosstown, series, the Bay Bridge series, it's a great time. So we're excited about it.
Let's talk business. Where are we, first of all? I'm going to get with brass tacks because I'm here, and yesterday at the NFL draft stage preview event, I interviewed Alan Snell, who has a Las Vegas blog, and John Casametes, who's a review journal. They both said, after we were talking about the draft in Vegas and the NFL side, we switched gears to the athletics. They said, well, I don't know how they're going to do it because there's no stomach for public money here. Now, that doesn't mean it won't happen, but when they both said it, they weren't next to each other, but they offered up that point of view. Maybe it's a certain public naivety regarding how financing can be done. Whatever the case, I was curious to find out where you were. I'm not taking reverse because I'm in Las Vegas.
Yep.
But where are you with Las Vegas right now?
Well, we've made a tremendous amount of progress the last year, really. It's been about a year that we got the direction from Major League Baseball to start going to Southern Nevada, understanding if the market could support a Major League Baseball team, understanding what site would work for the franchise, and then understanding what type of public-private partnership could be put in place. And I think we made a tremendous amount of progress. We spent almost 6 or 8 months working on market feasibility. We commissioned several studies, everything from a site feasibility, market feasibility, fiscal analysis, all the pieces, looking at the success of the other teams, the Raiders, the Golden Knights, now Formula One that's coming there. And I think the answer is clear that the community can clearly support a Major League Baseball team. I think it'd be very, very successful. So that is very reassuring, and I think it's an exciting opportunity. Then we turned our attention to really looking at what sites could work for the team. We've kind of narrowed that down to about 4 or 5 sites in the resort corridor that we're looking at. And we kind of have 2 leading contenders that we're working on and hope to have a final site that we'll be able to announce, the next couple months here. And then once that's done, that last piece, and it's kind of what your colleagues were talking about, is really around the public-private partnership. And we really haven't had a lot of conversations on that because it all depends on where is the location, what type of options exist, what's the timing, you have elections. And so it's just been too premature to really get into that. And I think once we do, we'll have a better sense if we can basically fit all these pieces together, develop a plan that we can take to Major League Baseball for a relocation approval. And that really is the parallel path in Las Vegas, is those steps. And this year is going to be a big year, even getting into the summer, of making real progress on that effort.
What I'm doing is I'm taking everybody out to see my view here.
It's quite a view. Zennie, you got a great room there. You're a high roller.
Oh, gosh. It's, relationships. But the whole relationships are the best currency. But I point this out, not just because there are people, at the pool, and this is a beautiful day in Las Vegas, and there's Bellagio over here, but also to ask you, will the site be near here? And what is it about the Strip? I mean, it's a dumb question, but I'd like you to articulate what is attractive about being here as we look at this,
Well, yes. All the final sites are in the resort corridor, which is near or around the Strip. And those are areas that are really attractive in terms of the energy that comes from the Strip. We also need a location that is accessible to locals, which will comprise, really the majority of the fans. So we need something that works for the tourists, works for the locals. The resort corridor, I think, provides that opportunity. T-Mobile has that. Allegiant has that. And that's really the needle we're looking to thread in terms of finding a site that can be successful. But when you see all the people on the streets, the energy, the excitement, the events that Las Vegas puts on, things like the NFL draft, like you're a part of, things like national championship games and bowl games and Pac-12 championships. And there's so many different things that are occurring there. Formula One. The city knows how to put on big events and create a lot of like a spectacle. And I think that's something that's exciting and intriguing both for the A's as well as Major League Baseball.
I believe in one of our conversations, you said that recently you're expecting the new drawings for the Las Vegas version of the ballpark to be ready by May.
Yeah, we even have some of the drawings already done. And, we're working very closely with our architectural team, fitting the location, figuring out how to do like the retractable roof, which is something we're like leaning towards. It's actually quite complicated. Because you want to have views, you want to be able in the shoulder times of the season where you can be outdoors to have an outdoor experience because that's the best for baseball. But you also want to have climate control for the middle of summer when it's really, really hot.
It's hot today, man.
Yeah, I know, So it's getting into that time where it's, yeah, exactly. So you need to have a climate controlled environment that works for everyone. So that's something we're spending a great deal of time on. And it's something that's a really important and thoughtful decision.
Now, I ran into a mutual friend of ours. I'm not going to get into his name because he's trying to stay off the radar, but he had a pointed question for you. He says, "Why is my friend gutting the team? What's going on with the Athletics? We can't." Da, 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 da. And we talked about it. Can you tell my viewers what you were saying? And I understand. It reminds me of the Athletics in my Oakland baseball sim world game in terms of what you do. To adjust to a situation where your income is negative, you dump players, and you increase merchandise sales as you can in marketing. That's the classic formula. But that's the case here, right?
Well, we're just in one of our cycles. This has been going on for 25 years. This is kind of Moneyball. It's, understanding when you get players to a point where their, costs start really rising beyond the resources of the team, that we can get young, good, upside players back, and doing that in a way where we can be as competitive as possible, as often as possible. And I think we've done that. We're the 5th most winning team over the last 20 years. And David and Billy have done an incredible job getting us into the playoffs and putting competitive teams on the field. I mean, they're really just magicians at that. And the only way that kind of cycle really can end is with the new ballpark, with the additional revenue that we get with a new ballpark, so we can invest in players longer term, sign players through their arbitration years and even into free agency, and even sign big free agents. Those are all things that are going to be in the realm of possible when we have a new building, whether it's in Las Vegas or at Howard Terminal.
Also, how much of this is a response to the pandemic? Because I know there are people who will say, well, the Yankees have money and so on, but the truth of the matter is that every Major League Baseball organization has had to adjust because of the pandemic, right? We're not out of it. We're
not out of it. And there's still an impact on attendance. I mean, if you look at the San Francisco Giants, they used to sell out every game, and they're down about 10,000 to 12,000 fans a game. We're down about 10,000 fans a game. So I think you're seeing still a legacy impact of a short offseason because of the labor issues. The fact that group sales have really not materialized with the pandemic. Companies, they're not even in the office. They're not going to have an office outing at a ballpark. And so there's a lot of factors in play. And some people are still just a little cautious about coming out of their home, doing an event, being out with another 10 or 20,000 people. And I think it's going to take time. So I think no one should overreact at this, period of time. We're at a very unusual time in kind of the history of, our society and where things are. And I think you have to take more of a measured, longer term approach and don't panic with some of the results in this current era.
What I find too, to piggyback on what you're saying, is that, look, took the flight here Monday, originally supposed to get here Monday, right? We had not one but 2 cancellations, Dave.
There you go.
And so you think, okay, I'm the sad sack, I'm the poor person going through this. This impacts the NFL too. They can't get people here on time because of the unpredictable nature of cancellations. And that's the pandemic. What I'm getting to is, why does it seem to me
that we as a people don't understand the damage caused by the pandemic into our worldwide economy and how we don't have a collective way of responding to it. I hate to sound global, but it is a global problem. I just get the feeling I'm frustrated because I don't think people understand exactly what happened. Am I wrong?
I think we're so close to it, Zennie. It's hard for people to even have the perspective. I know it's hard for me personally. Like it's sometimes overwhelming to like realize what we've been through the last couple of years and the social distancing and the lockdowns and masking and all these different things. It's been such a disruption in a way that, you know, we have not seen in hundreds of years. And I don't think it's fully worked its way through the economy, society, and even, you know, families in the culture that you're talking about. So I think we're going to have to still work through that. And I'm hoping that sports and baseball can be a little bit of a salve, somewhere where people can go have an experience that they really enjoy. And I've seen that out at the ballpark. You know, we haven't had the biggest crowds we've ever had, but, you know, the 17 or 18,000 that are there, they got the rally towels going. I'm seeing the smiles on their faces. They're getting the cotton candy, just having a great time. Like, who can be against that? And
right.
Like, that's what we provide as our product. And that's good for Oakland. It's good for the Bay Area. And I think it's just good for the U.S.
Now, shifting gears, there's one thing I want to ask you before I shift gears to Howard Terminal in the way that I'm about to, having to do with BCDC and some other wrangling nabobs. But at any rate, has Major League Baseball approached the federal government and actually provided and asked for the bailout that originally the Trump administration said that they were going to give sports? When Biden came in, we had Build Back Better, but the idea of a bailout for sports was taken off the table. And it would just seem to go quiet. And what's replaced it is, you know, well, you're a billionaire, it's okay, you can afford it. And it has nothing to do with operating business whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that is kind of past. Like, I haven't heard anything about that really, Zennie. So I think there was a period of time where that was possible or even likely. Mm-hmm. And I think in the end, the public policymakers really actually, you know, sent the money more to the individual people, you know, with the $600 checks and everything like that. And that was kind of the way it was handled. So that, I think that's coming past. And, you know, now we're focused on operating, you know, without restrictions, even though at the Coliseum, you know, we have the most restrictions of any building in the entire country, other than, you know, Canada, which is another country, obviously, because we actually have to show proof of vaccination in certain like interior areas, whether it's Shy Park Tavern or the Treehouse or the Stomping Ground. And so that is a little bit of an impediment for people. And, you know, we've gotten some pushback, customer service perspective on that. And I think it just demonstrates that, you know, this is not over.
It's not, how do I put it? It's not the restrictions I'm concerned about. It is the negative net operating income trough.
Sure.
That has been created over the past 2 years, that an appropriate bailout program would help eliminate, so that businesses can go back to a normal level, water table level monetarily. I say this because, not to prolong the matter, but it is important. I calculated that we would have to put $9.8 trillion into our economy just to get it back to a 2019 baseline. All right.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because, you know, and it's for a logical reason of, I'm telling you to close your business, but I'm not compensating you to keep it open, right?
Which is no revenue. Remember, we had a year and it was all cardboard cutouts.
Right. Exactly.
I didn't sell any tickets. Nothing.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not making a political statement. This is about the way economies function, folks. Money changes hands in some kind of way. You can't change that fact away, and people get hurt when you stop the flow. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying, Dave, is that we haven't done anything, you know, to stop the flow and the replacement, and the whole thing is screwed up. And there's been well, enough of me. Well, that's what I was trying to get at. Okay. Because it needs to be straightened out. Now, shifting gears to Howard Terminal, you answered the question, and I'm not going to belabor, because it wasn't a challenge question. It was more like hey, this is a global problem we're not out of, and we're doing a sucky job of taking care of it as a public policy matter for our government and others too, period. But my point is that we, as A's fans, are concerned that the Bay Area Conservation and Development Commission are harboring people who are not concerned with San Francisco's economic well-being, let alone realizing that the decisions that they're called on to make are not purely economic ones from their perspective. Even then, they are, not purely environmental, but even then, technically, they are environmental and economic and lifestyle oriented. Have you been able to talk with the BCDC and Zach Wasserman and straighten out with the hopes of avoiding that catastrophe that happened about a few weeks ago?
We're doing everything we can to lobby all the commissioners to provide additional information to the staff, ourselves, the port, the city. We commissioned a new report by Mercator. One of the biggest reasons they say the site is still needed for maritime shipping is to ship Teslas out of the Bay Area. Now, I had to notify them the Tesla, if they read the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, they built factories overseas to actually build the cars that, are actually going to be driven around China or Germany or Sweden or whatever. And so they're not going to be shipping any cars out of the Fremont facility at all. And so there's not going to be any exporting of cars in this area in the foreseeable future, if ever. And so these are the types of facts we had to provide BCDC and their staff so we can really make an intelligent decision. It is very hard for us to understand how 2% of just the Oakland Port's property is going to have any impact on the long-term ability for the Bay Area to actually fulfill its shipping and cargo needs. It's absolutely crazy to think that it has any bearing on it, especially a site that hasn't been used in 10 years.
Well, I think that one I'm going to have to splice for you as a friend, because as a person who was an early advocate back to 1991 of what others called a coal terminal, but really was the Oakland Bulk and Oversized Terminal, which was the dream of port planners going back to 1986 and 1986 Bay Seaport Plan. Learn the plan, folks. Forget the politics. Learn the plan. That if that were still center in our futures, and it should be in BCDC, if it knew what we're doing, would push it, right? They would say, hey, look, rather than worry about Howard Terminal, let the A's do that, have an emergency, provision for need, but build the doggone bulk and oversized terminal, fulfill his contract back, and let him build it. You guys have these provisos. That was what it was supposed to be. The city had signed the contracts. They knew all these different types of materials are going to come in. They knew it was going to be sulfur, coal, iron ore, and coal. They knew all that, okay?
All the aggregates. Yep.
They knew all of that. And then Tom Starr came through money at a bunch of politicians, okay, including, all right, I'm not going to get anybody in trouble by naming names, but he did, and flipped it, okay? That's what happened. And so what's going on is that what he did arguably negatively impacted Howard Terminal, because if he had not been messing around with the bulk and oversized terminal, Howard Terminal would have been built. The BCDC would be messing with it.
Yeah. We
wouldn't have your project being used as a kind of a malady, right? For what they didn't do. So, I'm saying all that to say this: that 2% does make a difference. It does make a difference, but it's important to find out what should not have been done. So I'm basically trying to give you a gift of saying, hey, look, why don't you do your port terminal again? Because that would help.
And that the Oakland Army Base, or OBOT, as it currently is envisioned, and actually operating, it's not even included in the Seaport Plan. So even though it provides maritime capability, just because BCDC doesn't have jurisdiction over it, it's not included in the analysis. So this is a very arcane and bureaucratic system that they've created with BCDC. This is the type of organization, when it was originally founded, it had great intent. It was supposed to ensure that the Bay stayed clean and was actually developed in an appropriate way. Everyone is for that, okay? We're for that too. But it actually grew to a size with any bureaucratic organization that got beyond its mission. And I think that's why we're having so many challenges. I mean, this is a very challenging body to get its approval, period. And that is symptomatic of the challenges any organization faces in getting anything done in the state of California at the current time.
So basically, wow, this opens up a can of worms that it could point to a lawsuit. That depends on the port, because given what you're saying, arguably BCDC is acting more like the regional government for the port that some people wanted, but was rejected. And
well, they have a lot of authority. Hopefully in this case, they're going to take all the facts and weigh it in a very reasonable way. And, hopefully our project can get approved. But as you know, Zennie, if they vote no, this project is dead.
Yep. Yeah. I completely know that. And but speaking of, legal projects, where are you all with the lawsuit that was filed by, Mike Jacob and his friends?
Well, we had 3 lawsuits. One is by Capital Corridor, one is by Union Pacific, and one is by, the maritime interest, PMSA, Schnitzer Steel. And so, they're all industrial concerns. Many of the largest polluters in the state are kind of joining forces. They obviously don't want commercial and or residential near the water. They think it could impede their activities. And so we're fighting all those lawsuits off. We're doing everything we can. We're fully lawyered up, and we're doing what we can ourselves, the city, to fight it. And it's 270 days of adjudication. So by the end of the year, we're going to know one way or the other. And, hopefully we prevail. But we could lose there, too. I mean, there's some chance that they, kind of like how Cal Berkeley lost their CEQA lawsuit. Yep. And for a while, they were forced to dramatically curtail the number of students who could be admitted to the University of California, Berkeley. That was a very sad situation. In the end, the state legislature had to pass an emergency bill to kind of go around it. We're not going to get an emergency bill just for the Oakland A's, even though the project is obviously transformative in a positive way for the community. And so we really need to win these cases, and we're doing everything we can to do that.
Well, wait. Let me challenge you on that. Why couldn't you get an emergency bill? I mean, considering the A's,
it's unlikely because the UC bill applied to all the UCs and the Cal States and the high schools. So it had broad statewide support. So, I mean, I guess I wouldn't rule it out, Zennie. Anything is possible. But, we're not counting on something like that.
The reason why I say is the governor of New York agreed to give $850 million to Buffalo Bills in the NFL for their new stadium. That's the governor of New York.
That's true. Well, I think she's from Buffalo, though.
Well, yeah. A minor technicality, but yeah. I mean, I could pick at look at Jerry Jones and the Cowboys and what he was able to assemble in building Cowboys Stadium, right?
Sure.
And I know there are people who have issues with public money. I don't, because I believe that it gives the government the ability to work with you and control the outcome of the development on behalf of the people.
Yeah.
Well, but okay, shifting gears and speaking of the people, though, I want to address something that you kind of started weighing in on Twitter, and that was marketing.
Yep.
And I believe you had said something about someone needing to do an investigation regarding marketing. Can you clarify that?
Well, that was really about the San Francisco-based media. They haven't really given this, project, or even the A's in general, or the East Bay or Oakland, I think the proper coverage and, fair and balanced and insightful reporting to understand what's truly happening and the positive nature of this project. And so most of the articles have been negative. Most of the articles have really looked at reasons to say no and reasons to think that both the city and the A's were incapable of making this project a reality. I think that's quite sad because, there was a time where there was the Oakland Tribune and there was local journalism, local media in this part of the world that could actually serve as a mouthpiece and an advocate for the economic development of this community. Instead of saying, hey, we want all the economic activity and progress happening in San Francisco, not in the East Bay or Oakland. And that's really what I'm saying. Like this, I think people need to take a longer look at this, and hopefully maybe some of the national media can get involved to understand, like, hey, what is this project about? Why is it facing so much resistance? And I mean, you look at it on a high level, it's an incredible opportunity. $12 billion private investment, a project that keeps the A's in Oakland, improves the air quality, thousands of jobs, 18 acres of public open space. Like what's not to like about this? And I think part of it is we have to get the story and the marketing of the project done in a way that's not negative. And so we're going to continue to push on that, Zennie, because I think it's an important thing. That's why I like coming on your show, and getting the word out. I think you've done a great job covering this. You've been one of the few people who've covered this from the beginning, and it's had a completely fair approach on it. And we need more of that.
Hey, have you considered, I brought this up before, I've talked about it with anyone who wouldn't listen, but I'll say it again. You can purchase the services of Hearst Media Services, which means that you can have a type of message put out as a client. This is not something that, and they try to maintain a firewall between Hearst Media Services and what they do, but it can be done. Also, you can have the same thing done with Alden and as well. My point is, have you dared inquire?
I think we're going to have to. I think it's a good point. You mentioned it to me in the past. I think it's going to be required because I think going more of the regular standard route has been ineffective. Because
you can't make money. Look, there's so much media content flying around. You cannot make money the standard way. Paywalls won't do it. Paywalls are a joke. They have been for years. There's too much media flying around to do it. And so you would have to ask, why is it that all of these organizations in the Chronicle, why all these people seem to be running in lockstep, right? And it's not because they're journalists, because I could take the next step and say, hey, well, you know what? Journalists also advocated the murder of Emmett Till, which is true. Okay. So that's not, I don't think that's a hill anyone wants to die on. All right.
Right. For sure.
But the point of the matter is that, have you considered really, since everybody else seems to be purchasing media and fighting against you, maybe purchasing your own?
Well, we have, and that's why we also been using Twitter, because Twitter is, completely democratic, and, you can kind of use it as a platform to get out to lots of people. And I think the more people who take interest in this story really understand what's happening, I think people are going to start asking questions. And I think I think the truth here really helps us, Zennie, because we do have a great project, and we have spent a lot of time in a thoughtful manner crafting it in a way that's going to help Oakland residents who live here now. And I think as long as we can cut through the clutter, the misinformation that our opponents are putting out there, I think we can find success. But, it remains to be seen if we can take it all the way, but we're going to try.
I have a marketing idea, though. I think you could have like a $5 game night. Everybody gets a free T-shirt. In what the T-shirt says, I don't know. But for people who need clothes or something like that, it would be fantastic for them to have a T-shirt. Or another night where it's like a burger, but something to address the fact that, and I think what I'm jonesing about is seeing people who are homeless in areas like around here that I've never seen them before.
I know, it's sad.
It's
very sad. Right. It's heartbreaking. I mean, I was here in Jack London Square earlier today, just walking down the street, and I saw it. It's just really your pit of your stomach. You have that horrible empty feeling, Zennie, and just you want to do something to help. And, I think a lot of people just don't know what to do,
Well, but we have to, for example, if I make a call for service very quickly, the call center goes someplace else. That's somebody making money elsewhere. Think about it. Think about the number
here. That could be someone earning a livelihood, paying taxes,
right?
Family, for sure.
David's tearing us apart. Okay. And I'm not saying it's not a political issue. This is, again, where money changes hands, right? Mm-hmm. These are basics of how we live. It's not a political thing. And someone says, well, let the market flow. But you know what? The people who work against the market, I don't care, name the country. All their governments have economic programs trained to take advantage of the United States market. That's the government doing that. So when you say pay attention to the market, my answer is, what market? It's government's eating away at us.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. All that mercantilism, I think that's a real thing. And so, and any way to combat that and have something that makes sense. And I think our project can be part of that.
Yes, absolutely. Right. That's what I'm saying. That's why you need a rallying cry. And you don't know who's pulling the media strings on the other side. And I hate to have this as I don't hate to have this as a back and forth because it's honest media. You got a project you got to fight for, even if it's buddying somebody's nose. Because there are people,
it's a great project, Zennie. Yeah. I believe in it. I think a lot of people, but I think there's actually a silent majority out there of people who know that this is a great thing. I think a lot of people don't want to wade into the politics in this day and age. They're scared to. But I know that they're out there, and I know they feel that this could be such a positive thing for Oakland and for the entire East Bay and the Bay Area and even the state of California. Like, California doesn't want to lose teams, pro sports teams, just like how it lost big corporations like Tesla and Oracle and Hewlett Packard. And I mean, these are really important moments for us as a community and as a state. And hopefully we can accomplish this. Really, it's an audacious goal. It's a big vision, but it's an exciting one.
Yeah. And it's like, we're coming to that point, though, where you have to make a decision between Vegas or here, or I say here, I mean there. When does that come? And the reason why I say that is because my thought is when you make that decision, if it's not, regardless of where it is, you need to make crystal clear and in detail what you did, why, because the people are not going to understand. Someone's going to be firing up a lawsuit at the ready. That has to be headed off at the pass wherever you go. But when is that going to happen? And do you have that plan ready to say, hey, look, you've been doing it.
I think it's soon. I think it could be this summer. I mean, obviously, if we got the BCDC vote, if it was no, then the Oakland effort would be over. If we can't get the actual development agreement voted on, I don't have a date from the city council. This earlier today, I was contacting many of the council members and the mayor, and we need to get a date on the calendar when they're going to do the vote. If there's no date and no deadline, we're not going to get everything done. And so we have to get that. That's a huge piece of this. And we've been asking for that for months, as you know.
Have you asked Libby if she's trying to push you into the next mayoral cycle? Because it looks like it. I said it before.
I don't know. I can't say. You'd have to ask her. She's been an incredible champion of this project. And I do really enjoy working with her. And she's fought for this thing really hard. She's a fighter. But, this is a critical moment. And, unless we get all the way there and get the thing approved, a lot of the work we've all put into it will go for naught.
Did you get your tax increment financing revenue number yet?
Maybe on Friday. So we're getting closer.
Maybe. Okay.
It's on the agenda. So we're getting closer. So there's some real progress going on there.
Okay.
It's
so on a scale of 1 to 10 progress, 10 being perfect, 0 being like, oh man, this absolutely is in hell and we're just, blankety blanked. Where are we in Howard Terminal?
I think it's a 5. It's just,
okay.
It's we have some momentum, but we have some setbacks. Hopefully we can get a vote scheduled. That's something that is keeping me up at night. And, I think the other thing is just Vegas is moving quickly. And, at the end of the day, we might get to a point where that's just the only thing on offer. And we only have a lease through 2024 and our stadium is 10 years past its useful life.
So same scale to apply to Vegas. 10 is fantastic. 0, it's awful. Where are we?
I think it's more like a 7 or an 8. It's moving at a very fast clip. And it was, it started from a lower position because it hasn't had as much time. And so it's really building a lot of momentum. And as you know, Zennie, it's a get to yes community. They want to see things happen quickly, still responsibly, but it's just a very different business environment.
That's what the NFL representatives said yesterday. They were saying that in Las Vegas, other cities they go to, and we can only do it here, or we can only do it there. But Las Vegas, okay, tell us what you need. We get what you want. You want to make it big. We're right there with you. What can we do?
Yeah, it's a mentality.
Yeah. No, it is a serious culture here that is that way. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think, and I don't want to get into a long thing, but it does. I touched on it earlier. The money crunch is hitting here too, and that it's hard to maintain that because of the money crunch. So that crisis is all over the United States.
That's just facing America in general, Zennie. I think that's something that's everywhere, and it's just a reality of any development or any business, as you said.
When the design comes out, if you can verbally compare it to Bjarke Ingels, which was dramatic, what are we going to be seeing?
Well, I think it's also dynamic and inspiring and visionary. Those are the types of things you need to go big in Vegas for it to work. And so I think that's a focus of anything that we do there and any design. And I think that's a critical component of any project's success in that marketplace.
Dave, I'll see you backstage. I'll clip it there.
Awesome. Enjoy your time down in the desert.
You got it. Hey, everybody, stick around for the rest of our coverage. Thank you very much to Dave over here. Keep doing that. And subscribe to Zennie62, bookmark, oaklandnewsnow.com. Dave, stick around in the background for about 10 seconds. That ends this broadcast. Hey, red carpet tomorrow, NFL draft, folks.